Okay, so I guess first of all, thank you for inviting us to have a talk about our experience with as an EHDEN SME. My name is Lars Halvorsen. I'm also joined by my colleague Houghtaling, who's leading our data analyst group. We'll talk a bit about our experiences, some of the challenges, and lessons learned, and overall, our experiences. So we've divided the talk into these kind of sections. So we'll talk a bit about who we are, what we've been working on, and our experiences with that. We'll go into a bit of overview of some of the challenges, especially technical challenges that we've experienced, and then some insights on what we've learned from this. So first, maybe some brief intro about who we are. So we're located in Belgium, in Contig. We started in 2018. Officially registered early 2019. We're still a small core team, but we also have a network of freelancers, contractors that we work with, so we are able to scale up, let's say, rapidly when needed, depending on the project load we have. We were certified as an EHDEN SME back in 2019, I believe, in the first group of SMEs that were certified. And we've have been and are working on multiple EHDEN projects in different, say, ranges from full-scale harmonization projects to inspection reports. I should also just mention we're also involved in non-EHDEN projects across Europe, as well as in Africa, doing similar things on OMOP CDM projects. So the range, like I said, of projects we've been fortunate enough to work on, they are quite diverse. So the geographic spread is basically from north to south in Europe. I'm talking about EHDEN projects. Data sources ranging also in size, so from basically data sources with hundreds of, data for hundreds of patients to data sources with data for hundreds of thousands of patients. And data sources as far as the type, from hospitals to disease registries. And then the scope, of course, of the different projects, as mentioned, also varies a bit. So talking about project scope, this is probably familiar to all of you, but of course, all harmonization projects also involve not just structural mapping, but also concept mapping. Sometimes for a small set of codes, while on some projects, actually, there are literally thousands of codes that needs to be mapped. So depending on the scale, of course, we can do manually map if it's a small set. We can use tools like Usagi. And we have also, over the years, developed some in-house tooling to support some of the larger concept mapping projects we've been involved in. For the conceptual and structural mappings and the implementation of the ETL code, that's, of course, a big part of these data harmonization projects. Now, we typically work in Python and SQL, but also, depending on the requirements, can also, of course, do R and other tooling. And we work with different database systems that are needed. So, yeah, the infrastructure part of the data harmonization projects can sometimes be a challenge. Different technologies and different requirements at different sites. So we tend to use Docker for deployment when possible, but I'll let my colleague talk a bit more about that in a few slides. Then the CDM inspection reports, of course, they're a key part of the EHDEN data harmonization projects. So we do that either as part of a full harmonization project or as a separate task if the data partner has done the harmonization on their own. And finally, we also have the opportunity sometimes to work with a data partner to basically at least start planning out the steps beyond the data harmonization. So basically what you can do to build your data analytics or modeling applications on top of OMOP CDM. So that's also part of the work involved sometimes. So overall, of course, our experience as an EHDEN SME have been positive, I have to say. It's given us an opportunity to work with very many motivated data partners, which allows us to also keep learning and stay motivated. I don't know how to put it, but I mean, being able to take part in something that will ultimately make a difference for patients is actually the most motivating part of it all. And I have to say, I feel fortunate that I work with a group of colleagues that share that passion and that motivation. So the structure, I think, of the EHDEN project has been very helpful. I think having these open calls, both for data partners and SMEs, has given a very supportive structure, at least for us as an SME, to work within. The involvement, of course, and the accessibility of the EHDEN project team helps. So yeah, we've seen many positives working as an EHDEN SME. One of maybe a given, but I mean the tight integration between EHDEN and OHDSI is probably a given. But I've just mentioned a few other points here on this slides that I think is worth mentioning as far as the positive experiences. So the EHDEN Academy, obviously, both for us as an SME to train people on our team, but I think also for data partners to have access to those training materials and the resources. We do also find that let's call it the feedback loop on the OHDSI tooling, this tight integration between OHDSI and EHDEN has been very helpful. And then, of course, the access to EHDEN-specific, either versions of that tooling or new tooling. So I wanted to mention this being part of the EHDEN network means that we feel that we're able to contribute in a way that makes a difference. I have to say that things like the COVID-19 task force last year, the fact that was so quickly established and seeing the involvement of so many different people, including SMEs and their partners, it is very positive. It's something where you do feel that you're part of something bigger than yourself. And related to that, of course, is this community that EHDEN now is building. So it's a growing community of medical professionals and, I guess, IT professionals, people like us, that all work on a common goal. So we find that very rewarding. So yeah, so those are some of the overall positives. Now, like I said, there are also some challenges in when we work on these kind of projects. So I'll pass it over to Jared, who will take us through some of these challenges and how we worked on solving them.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for the intro. So as Lars said, I'm Jared Houghtaling. I'm an analyst at edenceHealth, and I'm quite involved with both the kind of all the different phases of the harmonization projects that we're doing currently with EHDEN. One of the big challenges that we face on each project, of course, is differences in infrastructure. Is it okay? But anyway, so we find that, yeah, of course, each project has its own infrastructure requirements, and one of the, let's say, the solutions that we have come across, or that we kind of rely on heavily in each of our harmonization projects, is using Docker, so a containerized approach to actually deploying the software. And that software is largely, I guess, for ETLs, it's Python and SQL oriented, but for things like the OHDSI tools, we use a lot of R. And so all of this can be kind of packaged up in kind of a Docker container that runs on particular infrastructure. We have a little video here that I'll kind of have playing in the background as I describe a bit what this is. So we have a software suite, so kind of a set of these tools that we are calling edenceExplorer, and that set ranges from a database with vocabulary tables and synthetic OMOP data already preloaded. We also have, out of that, we have ACHILLES and data quality dashboard that we can run on that database instance, again in Docker. Then we have Atlas and webAPI that we can essentially allow a user to spin up an Atlas webAPI instance. So I guess in the background here, you see it's simply just loading an image here for data quality dashboard and for ACHILLES, and it executes just automatically given a set of configuration parameters. And then the user can go through and look at the various data quality tools. Here it's showing there's a set of services or images that we actually have to deploy in order to run Atlas Web API. But again, all of this deployment takes place quite rapidly, so you can get from start to finish on this in about an hour. And we do this now for each of the projects. And then you have a local version, a Dockerized local version of Atlas, and you can do cohort building and create studies and things like that. And once you have done that, we also have a Dockerized version of RStudio that you can actually execute some of these studies as kind of the engine. We're also currently working on Arachne and that kind of integration with Docker, but as you see, so here's RStudio being pulled up. And in general, we find that while Docker is very powerful and we're using it pretty heavily, there also, of course, are limitations. So deploying this on Windows-based machines is not always trivial, and of course, not everybody is familiar with Docker, and the learning curve, just in general, of containerization can be rather steep. So those are some things we've run into. But in general, this is our approach, and we're planning, at least in the coming weeks, to make some of these, let's say, pre-built images and these tools available for the broader community here in the future. It includes things like the inspection reports, but also ACHILLES DQD and these other OHDSI tools that can be used to kind of assist and integrate into harmonization projects. All right, and outside of infrastructure, we also have a lot of work simply on conceptual mapping. So maybe Lars, if you want to, perfect. So we've done a lot of work mapping source concepts to standard concepts in the OMOP vocabularies. We've also done mapping with custom concepts, and we've developed in-house kind of platforms in order to facilitate this. So we have a suggestion engine that we're continuously kind of improving that produces suggestions. And then we have a reviewer platform that allows medical professionals or others to actually review our suggestions and submit modifications or submit feedback on those particular suggestions. And so far in EHDEN projects, we have mapped over 100,000 codes to standard and approximately just under 10,000 custom codes. And the vast majority of our code mapping has been non-English based source codes.